What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and it's my continuing Hub World mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. Today is the third-person action hack-and-slash platformer, Darksiders Warmastered Edition, a remaster of the original that released in 2010. Darksiders is coming for the PS4, PS4 Pro, PC, and Xbox One for $20. This review is the Xbox One version, as no other version was ready for play at the time of this review. Take that as you will. Let's see how it did, shall we? As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for Darksiders Warmastered Edition. Panzer Dragonsiders, Mark Hamill's Joker in his final form, and hell, let's just let Troy Baker voice all the characters in a game. Graphics are up first. You know, the graphics have been so hit and miss in this recent rash of remasters that we've sort of seen just pop out like unexpected babies from the various different game developers. Hell, some of them never really even announced their birth, like AC Ezio Collection and its $50 PR campaign. Now, of course, we've seen some great work, but we've also seen Prototype 2 Remastered, which in some nations is most likely some kind of war crime. Now, the nice thing about Darksiders Warmastered is it promises a solid 60 FPS on the PC and PS4 and Xbox One, but only 30 on the Wii. It promises double the texture resolution, improved shadows, and new post-processing effects throughout the entire game on all of those versions, though. And damned, if many times it's actually not delivering just that. Now, Darksiders was never ugly, but it did show its age, and while you don't really look at this and think, man, this is a brand new game, the excellent increase in texture budget and improved effects makes that change instantly noticeable. Now, with the PS4 version getting non-native 4K and the PC version getting many more video and frame rate options. Really, the only odd man out is the Wii, but I think by now it's probably just cool to be along for the ride. Gameplay all the way throughout the title is slick, input lag is at a bare minimum, and once again you get the Warp Sensibilities tour of traveling with war, traversing both human and hellacious worlds, reflecting in both the interesting world views you see, but also some really excellent character design. Warmastered sees you playing as one of the four horsemen, as I said, War, who, as leviathans of the deep and sort of HGH-riddled human forms go, seems pretty tame when it comes to his overall look. While it's humorous that he himself sort of looks like he stepped out of a World of Warcraft art session, the other characters in the game actually look phenomenal, from the absolutely creepy merchant selling you items in trade for the screaming souls of the damned, to the myriad bosses and their changing attacks and forms and excellent world interacting animations throughout. While trying to keep this review mostly spoiler-free, I have to say that the step up in graphical fidelity helped some of those later bosses achieve that ethereal evilness that I think they weren't really able to get on their original release. Overall, I actually like a lot of the look here. Sadly, not everything's perfect. Listen, I don't know the normal FPS for a stroke, but in another example of proof that it's vital that a game be played all the way through for a review, the FPS absolutely tanked in a couple of the early and then far later boss battles. It went from rock solid as I was pilfering the crooked, probably nasty life forces of all the enemies with my Sith of Soul Stealing +1, and then after much adventuring, I finally got to that first boss battle. Who knows, maybe it was pissed I'd kept it waiting by trying to find every nook and cranny of the game world prior to that, but it absolutely bottomed out. It's atrocious, and it makes beating particular enemies and bosses much more difficult. Now, frame rate before that took some small hits during cutscenes and occasional traversal, but rarely was gameplay ever affected. However, once I started going farther and farther into the game, even clearing the cache on the Xbox One, and installing it on a different console with an SSD, the FPS did seem to have some questionable spots here and there, but it really popped up during occasional boss battles. It is most of the time that promised 60 FPS, but it did have some issues here. Now, is that a memory leak? Who knows? Luckily, its worst performance seems tied to those specific boss battles, and normal gameplay was ultimately fine, but let's be honest, the boss battles are one of the places where you really need it. Of course, this does beg the question whether that's the reason we see all the other versions not playable for review, at least from my PR contact. My hope is that this is patched prior to the release this week. Now, I would say this looks better than many remasters, and we see an attention to detail not only throwing higher resolution textures in there, but also improving other aspects of image quality that brings the entire presentation really up a bit higher. Sadly, it does need a patch or two to solidify the later game FPS, but overall, I have to say, even though those occurred, as a package, this still looks really good. Sound, music, and voice.
Power has left me. You need not enter it. I will grant you the power to see into the accursed realm for a time. Restore the balance.
punch this thing. It's coursing with power.
And of course, sound is up first. Listen, I don't know what a war sword sounds like cleaving through twice dead enemy tendons, but I like what I hear here. While not a ton of work has really gone to rejiggering what was heard in the original game, I think very little needs to be, and from the last sigh of a demon as you Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom its heart out of its chest, or the wicked whirl of your massive ninja star, it's actually very good sound. As I said in past reviews, sound is really that third eye when you need it, alerting you to enemies recovering from stuns or the wind-up of bad guys off screen, especially if audio positioning is done well. I'm happy to report that for the most part it was clear sailing here, though I wasn't really happy with the occasional missing environmental sound or sometimes a weapon sound that wouldn't play out. Music. Created by a trilogy of folks Chris Valesco, Mike Reagan, and Scott Morton of Overwatch, God of War, and Titan Quest music fame, respectively, you actually have a massive amount of talent here, and for the most part it shows. Never really surprising in instrument choice or theme, the tracks instead do an incredible job embellishing the locations sonically, giving you a very real connectiveness to them, like the fantastically discordant beginnings of In Prophecy that mixes female vocals, strange horror movie sound effects, and then lowers down into this throbbing tribal percussion, and then the vocals climb back on for the ride. There's a maturity here to the soundtrack that really can't be denied. I like it, but it's not over the top. Voice. You know, I've always felt that Darksiders was missing something. I could never put my finger on it. It wasn't Troy Baker being Troy Baker as Troy Baker, the new demic creature Abaddon, or him again as the demon Straga, or Liam O'Brien as War himself. It's a very real, well done, if a bit punctuated performance there. It's not even Mark Hamill, who showed up and said, fuck it, let's just pretend I'm the Joker, as he voices the Watcher, which is a creature that is along for the main character's ride. You know, I think it's because they all sound like what I just said. There are no real standouts. They all run together to me. It's not bad at all. It's that aside from the crazy effects for, let's say, creatures later experienced in the game, the only really standout to me was the demon Volgrim, voiced by the talented Phil Lamar, who did an excellent job there. I guess I would say it was good professional voice, but it really didn't emotionally hit me in the feels at all. Gameplay. So, as always, a bit about story. The game starts out with a pretty fucking confused horseman of the apocalypse. That's WiiU, who shows up just friggin' dressed to the nines, ready to bring it all on in the final apocalypse, only to find out that the rest of the horsemen didn't get the memo. So after a brief bit, which is really there to sort of teach you the ropes, War is basically put on trial by the Council, which is a group that keeps heaven and hell from constantly fighting and obviously sucks horribly at their job, because that's pretty much how the entire game starts. Now, they think that War has gone rogue, but he talks his way out of losing everything and is instead sent back out to find who the hell really did this, what the hell really happened, and make those who are responsible pay. And that's that. What's next is a 15-plus hour hub-based journey through a scorched earth, just demon skipping through enemies left and right as you find out that basically mankind is gone. But right before they left, they apparently became huge fans of Jenga, so they made sure to build everything nice and puzzle-like right before they died. And of course, what makes up Darksiders is combat, with a good dash of exploration and a heaping of puzzling. Let's get to it. First up is exploration, and to me it continues to be one of the highlights, with vast swaths of questionably manned enemy encampments greeting you one moment and huge golem-like protectors of roads needing to be helped the next. And I've always been interested in these kind of worldviews, the apocalypse with the mystical side all together as one, and I think that this worldview is actually really interesting to explore, and they did a good job making it somewhat gamey, but still enjoyable to walk around. Now, the original handled combat well, and of course the Warmastered does it the same way. It does it incredibly well, with you fighting, frying, filleting, punching, piercing, slicing, smacking, sticking, and shooting enemies, all within a fairly basic but still somewhat open combat system. War wades into battle, wielding a sword the size of a goddamn surfboard, performing demonic sword katas as he cuts down countless enemies who relentlessly try to kill him by what appears to be force of will alone. He also has wrath abilities. Now, these allow you to use a separate energy bar, and while basic, they're fairly useful skills, and he seems to be more of one of those horsemen that eschews tons of skills for a couple really hard-hitting ones. In fact, the game design really does seem to be an exercise in understanding self-limitations. It's not over the top. Everything is only what is supposed to be there. Anything more, anything extra seems to have been cut, and I actually really like that. Now, as you progress, you unlock a couple more weapons, like a massive ninja star, revolver, and others, all with additional movesets, which really do stretch the combat into a very comfortably sized offering, but I have to admit, the hilarity of the first time you see that War ninja star is just perfect. Hey guys, I got an idea. Let's just tear the radiator fan off a semi-truck and use that. Now, in-game, it's called the Crossblade, but I've affectionately named it Airwolf, since it pretty much looks like he tore the rotors off a helicopter and hoped no one would notice. Of course, now it's time to percolate on some puzzles for a moment, and I can't lie, at times it does feel like Darksiders is a bit stretched out, as the later puzzles especially both are lengthy and just sheer time required, but also employ both vertical and horizontal exploration and puzzle work, which can make the progression feel sloggy from time to time. Now, they are saved, though, by the fact that their difficulty is just about right for puzzle work in a game like this. Now, for me, one thing that always matters is that these games have good enemy makeup in their combat, and I have to say this game really reminded me just how well it had done this. From foot soldier heavy mini apocalypses where I was so efficiently smiting the enemy you might have assumed that Obi-Wan felt them crying out in terror, to these edge-of-the-seat mixathons with elemental bad guys using multi-layered attacks backed up by breakable armor and their own somewhat special skill-like moves. Just when you think you have a grip on, let's say, what's going on, mini-bosses show up, and I have to admit, especially later on, some of them offered an excellent challenge. The difficulty is also really well done. It's just nailed down with each level, offering a little bit of a slightly unique experience, but mostly just based on enemy reaction times, while the boss battles turn into nut-crunchingly difficult experiences on those higher difficulties, especially an old fan favorite boss that you guys might remember that has almost no noticeable discernible patterns in the first place. Now, as a package, you have this classic game-style exploration, puzzle work, and combat, and Darksiders really reflects the excellence within the genre. Now, it's not going to light the world on fire in any one area, but performing all of those admirably is a big deal right now, and on a remaster for 20 bucks like this, it's a pretty fantastic package. Fun factor. So, despite the FPS issues that cropped up from time to time in the boss battles, Darksiders is fantastic fun. Now, sure, the exploration can get a bit grindy, but the puzzle answers are usually a mixture of what you have works and look again, dumbass, and I bet you end up finding the answers for the most part. And also, when you look at that battle makeup, which is pretty much what a game called Darksiders better get right in the first place, it's well done. Now, let's be honest, if there's a patent claim for badass, it wouldn't be a number, it'd just be a picture of War from this game chilling next to a swimming pool filled with the blood of his enemies, but that's pretty much how I like my protagonists. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touched again rating scale. Yes, despite the FPS issues that have cropped up, it was instantly playable, and I have to say, for 20 bucks, this is an insane amount of gameplay. It is dialed in. It is a fairly good remaster, again, with just a couple of those FPS issues, but we see a lot of extra love going into this, and I think that they should be rewarded for that. So anyway, that's it for me. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Maybe check out Twitter or Patreon. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down. And remember, if you want reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullshit, stick with ACG. Peace out, and enjoy the rest of your week.